And hey, I just want to tell you thank you so much for coming on Hero Front. You have no idea how long I've been watching you just get after it. If I could be a chief, I'd want to be you.
I appreciate that.
I'm serious. Like, if I see myself as a chief, I would hope I'm like you. And I say that because you strike me as the type that pushes the boundaries, that forward thinks, you're not short-sighted, you think outside the box, you don't take no for an answer, and you seem to pull off things that most would say isn't possible. And so your way of thinking is what I appreciate in people. I try to do that. I try to be that person.
Mm-hmm.
And I know how hard it is to be that person. Oh my God, you're going to catch so much flack. You got to be the most resilient man on planet Earth.
You just have to not care. If you know what you're doing is right and the reasons are right, then you just do it. And it doesn't matter. Flack doesn't matter because it's not flack. It's only flack if you feel that way and you let it get to you. If what you're doing is righteous based on your ethics and morals and principles, then you do what you think is right. If you don't, you're actually going to stay up later at night when you don't do those things. When you go, I should have done this, but I didn't want someone to get mad at me, or I didn't want, the random person in the bureaucracy to say something about it. If you don't care about any of that and you're just focused on doing the right thing, then you're always okay. And then even those people in the bureaucracy that I was just talking about, as long as you understand that all of them are awesome Americans that are doing great things and trying to do the right thing, what they think is the right thing,
mm-hmm.
until they prove you otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of them will prove that they're deviant and there's other agendas at play. But if you don't know and you fill in those opinions with, you fill in those gaps with opinions, you always err. Most people will err on the side of, well, that person sucks, or they're stupid, or they don't know, or they don't like what I'm doing, or they're trying to sabotage. And you start framing your problems, framing your solutions, and framing your interactions with that knowledge, even though it's fake. If you switch that and instead go, I don't know why that person's doing it, but I'm guessing if there's a real reason, there's a good reason. Now I'm forecasting and I'm projecting good on them, and I completely change the way I interact with those people. Now, if they prove me wrong at some point, that's okay, and we'll deal with that. But until they prove you wrong, continue under the auspice that they're doing great things, and they don't quite understand what you're trying to do, which allows you to continue telling that story correctly, pushing things forward. And again, if it's the right thing to do, we'll just keep doing it until it's done.
Absolutely. I love that. So I would like to first just hear about you.
Okay.
Like, just for people who aren't familiar with you, like where you currently work, what your responsibilities are, and just kind of the type of person and type of thinker you are.
It's a lot to unpack. We'll say, so right now I'm the senior enlisted leader for this Chief of Staff Strategic Studies Group, which is it's about a 6-person organization that sits up at the Pentagon. And so the Chief of Staff has a CAG, so General Brown has a CAG, and they do CAG-like things. But this group, it's 2 Americans, a Brit colonel, a French colonel, a German colonel, and a Japanese colonel. And our job is it's the weird stuff. So one of the best examples is when we had Vice Chief Wilson. So right now we're in the Chief of Staff Strategic Studies Group. Technically, we report to the Vice Chief. And so we check in with him. My boss checks in with him all the time. I check in with him maybe once every 2 weeks. But he's the one who actually signs our EPRs and runs us on a regular basis. But he's the Vice Chief. He's really busy. So we go out based on his intent and General Brown's intent. But when it was General Wilson, he brought the team together. They're hanging out, they're thinking, they're brainstorming. He's like, I think we need to AI is a thing. We need to get more into this AI world. How do we do it? And the team started thinking through, and over about a 6-month period, they built what is now the MIT AI Accelerator. So it's from idea. Who do you put that to? Do you hand that to AFMC or ACC?
Right.
And you don't know, because you don't even know if this is a good idea. This is just an idea right now.
Right.
And so this team is allowed to, they have that flexibility and freedom to go move forward and do that. Try it out. Let's say it was a terrible idea. Well, they wasted some time and maybe they learned something. But if it becomes a good idea and it actually builds into something real, then they can hand it off to a real organization. The SSG helps stand up AFWorks.
Yes.
Long time ago, we actually help AFWorks on a regular basis. We help set up Digital University. We help set up the Defense Ventures program. So a lot of these programs that are slowly now gaining traction, but at the very beginning, does AETC own Digital University? Is it A1? None of them have the money or the time to do it because they're so busy doing the job that they've been handed down. And so we go try it out. you usually have to break some ceilings and break some relationships, and you usually need the chief of staff's office to do that, to say, hey, here's what we're going to do. There was a project that we did called Project Brown Heron. It's a big data science project where we took MilPIDs, AMS, readiness data. So like right now, I could go on there, I could log in, and I could see where our F-16s are and where the PMC, FMC rates, what those look like, where the parts are in transit, and readiness levels of M16 and M4 qualifications of the people in those units. So how do you build a readiness dashboard with 1 million different databases? And each time we tried to access a database, they said, no, you're not allowed to. And we had to hold a letter up that said, non-chief of staff school with it. And then from there, once we opened up that API and opened up that data flow, we're good. Then we do it again with another database, and we do it again. But you needed that level of authority to make that stuff happen. COVID task force, we helped run that, trying to get everything from masks to working with the defense industrial base to turn factories and to turn all of their supply chains on. That was a weird one that we did. And then because we have those international players, we actually help write one strategy document a year. So we just wrote a strategy on bringing in emerging technologies for the coalition, which means we go talk to U.S. industry and academia. We also do the same thing in Paris and London, so we can get best of breed of everybody. And for about 3 months, we study this problem. We then write a paper, 10 pages or so, and we present it to the air chiefs. We just did this. I was in London about a month ago, and every summer in London, it's out in Fairford, but it's called the Royal Air Tattoo. Biggest air show really, other than Oshkosh probably in the world, but it means all 3 air chiefs. So the chief of the Royal Air Force, the chief of the French Air Force, and General Brown were all there together. So they sat there together, and we said, bosses, here's what you asked us to do. Here's what we learned. Here's our recommendations, and we need you to tell us, go do those things. And if they say yes, which they did, then we start doing those things. So this year it was rapidly bringing in emerging technologies for the coalition. The year before that, it was human-machine teaming. The year before that, it was Airmen of the Future. And so some of the things AATC is doing now are things that we learned from that academic study on Airmen of the Future. Some of the things that we're doing now with digital transformation, we learned in our digital airman study, our human-machine teaming study. And then we're about to start another effort, and that will be, we think it's going to be, how do we maintain decision advantage in a post-information world, which can mean a lot of things, but it's really how do we take data and fake data, good data, teach people how to use that data correctly, and then make really rapid decisions. And so we'll go back out to Paris here in a few months.
We are recording still, too.
Okay, perfect.
So I do have a question based on all that. First of all, I know you were doing a lot, but my God, you're doing way more than I thought. Like, holy cow. Like, what?
Check this. So I'm not a command chief anymore, which means I don't have a staff meeting. I have no staff meetings. I've got like a bi-weekly, it's like a staff meeting, but it's a half-hour meeting in the Pentagon. It's very structured and efficient, and that's it. Which means now I have the entire rest of my time to actually build things and to talk to people and to build projects and to support these things. So instead of only maybe 2 hours a week or an hour a day or whatever it was before, I've got way more time, which is helpful.
Absolutely. It's like you're using your actual... Hold on a second. Mine's a little off now.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. I think I found the sweet spot. So you're able to focus on what you want to focus on. You're able to be fully immersed, fully focused, using your talent, using your unique skill set to the best of your abilities. And it sounds like you don't have a lot of litigation, and if you do, you can get past it pretty quick.
So here's the weird thing. We've got funding and influence. We have no authority. So... for instance, we can, because of where we sit...
It sounds like my job is public health.
Yeah, very much so. We
advise.
Correct.
Yes.
So what'll end up happening is, when I'm talking to General Brown, we find out kind of what are his big pain points. We do the same thing with General Alvin, with CSAF, with every MAGCOM commander. We can find every random airman we can find, and everybody we talk to, we talk about that kind of stuff. And so I've got a Rolodex, we'll call it, of pain points and issues and concerns and challenges. Most of my conversations are actually outside of the Air Force, in the venture capital community, the emerging technology community, or in the international community. And because of that, you get also more pain points. You also see solutions. So, for instance, I was on a phone call with a big education company last week, and they had said, hey, we've got this new thing. We're rolling this out. We think it's pretty interesting. And talking to AU in the past 2 days, I think there's some things that they can talk about. So some of it was just I'm going to take a problem that, Stephen Blazer or Chief Blazer has over at AU. I think I can hook him up with a possible solution. I don't have the authority to make it happen, but I can talk to him so he knows now what's in the realm of the possible. He expands his network with other people that are in the education space that may be further on this challenge. And at the very least, even if they can't figure it out right now, he now has a network of people really smart that are working these problems, and they can continue to collaborate.
I know someone else who does that.
Who's that?
Your protege, Chad Hardesty.
That's a good guy.
Shout out to Chad Hardesty. No, he did that for me.
Yep.
He did that same concept for me. I swear to you. I'm not kidding.
I believe you.
So, just long story short of it, I had him on Hero Front, and after the episode, he's like, we need to grow this. How can I help you? And he had a hand in getting me here today. He really did.
That's what it is. So first off, if you think about what your superpower is, I think it's weird to think about yourself that way, but I know a lot of people. I'm actually an extreme introvert, so I don't like talking to people, but I do, and I deal with it. It's fun, but then I have to go home and not talk to anybody. But being able to talk to people, to meet new people, to address challenges, and then to link them up so they solve their problems is a great thing. It's a great power to have, and it's a great thing to continue doing because you can help a lot more people that way. But our office doesn't have the power to actually say yes to real things. One example, 4 years ago, you probably heard a thing called the Computer Language Initiative, where we were going to pay somebody for Python like we would pay them if they could speak Urdu or Farsi, because we'd say, these are computer languages that are really important to us. We're going to take that exact same program, and we're going to assess you, we're going to test you, and if you're we'll call it a 3-3, and that's how they rate languages. How well can you read it? How well can you, or how well can you read and write, and how well can you listen and speak? Right. So let's say you were a 3-3 in Python or in C++. We could then pay you money. We got everything through the system. We worked really hard on it, and then it died in the Pentagon. Now, It died because it couldn't find the right owner, and people didn't have the funding for it. So I'm going to assume that the people behind it were doing great things for America, and they weren't able to fund it. But we were able to hold everything up and get this on a silver platter, and then it's up to the system, to the bureaucracy, to the grind of the Pentagon to actually make it happen. And so if they're not ready to do that, for whatever reason, we can't push it through. Now, one thing, we were able to push the MIT AI Accelerator because whose toes are you stepping on there? Nobody's. And so we're able to build it. As long as we get vice chief money, we can fund it. And that gives us flexibility and freedom. So as we're doing problem curation, and I think every leader, you have lots of problems you can solve, but trying to actually assess those problems to see which ones are going to be worth your time, and not in a, these are below me type thing, but I only have this many hours in the day, and so I need to make sure that those hours are successful in solving a problem. Which problem is worth that time? You have to curate those problems, and some of it is knowing who the end user is going to be, who's the decision maker on that problem. And so we end up having to go through that every day.
Wow. You're an incredible person. I mean, just like, you are such a unique person for this job. Like, I just want to know, so I know you're in charge of a lot of stuff, right? Hold on a sec.
Yeah, no problem.
I think your mic starts to pick me up. So
okay.
I think that's what I'm hearing. So
Maybe
I might need to stay back here a little bit.
It's not sounding bad for me.
It sounds good?
Yeah, so
okay, good.
We'll see after the end what it actually sounds like, but I think we're all right.
So we know a lot about what you're doing now. You're doing huge things. You seem very unique. You're like the glue that's bonding all these concepts and ideas together, because it's really easy for a group to be fired up with an amazing idea, but I know it's an entire other beast to put that idea into reality.
Very much so.
Right? And I've done project management, so I understand the concept, although not on your scale, but I'm trying to. But I want to know, like, what kind of person are you? What kind of thinker are you that has led you to this incredible, unique opportunity that you're currently sitting in?
Yeah, that's a hard question to answer, because now you got to self-reflect and kind of label yourself as a certain type of thinker. Well, that's what we do on
Hero Front.
No, that's okay.
We self-reflect. Let's go.
I don't mind the reflection. It's trying to put it in a real definition. I can tell you, I've got what I think is really interesting is finding people who know there's people in the world, there are things that in the world that you are the only one that knows about these things. You know, so I grew up as an intel guy in the Air Force, did special operations for 10 years. I flew for a while. I was ground intel for a while. I was unit support for a while, where we support flying operations. So I did a lot of different types of foreign internal defense, you know, training Philippine Special Operations Forces, Thai, Indian Special Operations Forces. So you get those experiences. I then go to the big world of the DCGS. I get this big data and AI knowledge as we start doing a thing called Project Maven, where we're bringing AI into the Air Force. So you add these other weird skills to the skills you already have. And then I moved over to developmental test over at Edwards. Again, weird skills, you add them to what you already have. And so over time, you start developing these weird buckets of skills. I also get to the point, and maybe it's an OCD thing, whereas if something's on my mind, I will dig into that for 3 weeks to 6 months until I feel like I know it well enough, and then I can move on. And so sometimes it's, you know, 8 months ago, there was a new company spinning out of Google. It's a quantum company. I didn't know much about quantum, but I was going to be in a meeting with a bunch of PhD level quantum scientists, and was like, I got to learn this. Yeah. And so I did nothing but quantum for about 2 weeks, enough where I could get into the communication flow, ask real questions, and understand what was going on. I don't understand everything about quantum physics, but I do understand post-quantum cryptography and quantum sensors, and those are the things that the military will use in the next few years. But that took a lot of YouTube. It took a lot of reading research papers. Sometimes it's not quantum. Sometimes it is French baking. And I go through 6 months of learning how to actually cook correct brioche, correct macaron. And I'll do that until I feel like I'm good. And then the next, it's pizza dough. And then the next, it's bees. It's random. But as soon as it's stuck in my head, that's what I have to do until I feel like I've checked that box. But now...
So it's like you've leveraged this OCD.
Yeah, maybe it's OCD, but that's what I think it is.
Right.
But yeah, it's an annoying persistence to learn something, or an annoying persistence to get something done, and just continuing to use it until, if at any point I feel like it's detrimental, I won't do it for the most part. And then at a certain point I go, you know what, I'm good. I've made 80 different types of pizza dough. I find the dough that I like, and now every Friday I make pizza dough, and that's what we have for dinner.
Awesome. What have been some of the impact to the way you see the world from all of these experiences? Has that changed you as a person?
Oh, it has to. I mean, and I think that's for anybody. You know, you have life experience. Life experience, as long as you have the chance and time to reflect on that life experience, it will change the way you think, good or bad. And it's usually not either. It's just in one way or another way.
Was there any particular experience that had the most impact on you?
There's plenty of them. I mean, you know, having my first son. So I've got a 15-year-old son, and when he was born, that changed the way I thought about work-life balance, even though I was crazy busy even after that. But putting that much love and concern into another human being, it's just a different level. And I think only, or at least I didn't see it until I became a parent. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. And so that opened me up to a level of empathy that I probably didn't have before. And understanding of things, or at least the attempt to understand things. I'll say being a command chief opened me up. So I was always a tenant unit on a base. I never worked with the maintenance group, and I never worked with security forces or medical. I was always a tenant unit. And so we were an operational wing everywhere I went. And so now all of a sudden, my first time being part of the actual base and being part of the wing was as a command chief. And so now firefighters, medical, public health in the middle of COVID, fuel operations, CE, then all the base and community involvement. And so working with in the middle of COVID, Edwards Air Force Base sits between 3 counties. And so every week I'm on the phone with the city manager for LA, or the county manager for LA County, for San Bernardino County and Kern County. And then we're working with the state, in the state of California, in the governor's office. And so those were all things I never had to deal with or even think about. And so it opened my eyes to, I knew all these operations were happening. I didn't understand them correctly. I didn't understand why there's problems at the CDC and the issues that a CDC manager or the FSS deals with on a regular basis, the amount of money that flows into that organization. And I haven't found a CDC yet that actually makes money, because it's so expensive to take care of newborns, for instance.
Right.
The teacher to student ratio or the teacher to child ratio is so lopsided, but that's okay. We're not there to make money. We're there to provide capability for our families and for our airmen. And so understanding the business of the base, there's also a business in AFMC. It actually runs like a business. And so for Edwards Air Force Base, you've got test ranges. So you have to run them. You have to.
I'm at Eglin right now.
Yeah. So Eglin's range is the same thing. You have to pay for that. There's companies that have to come in and pay for use of that range, and that means you have to run a business. It's not a business that makes money. But when I'm in a meeting in the the fourth time this week, and we're talking about $30 million over budget for something, which I never had to deal with, in many of my flying units because we were O&M or RDT&E money only. But being responsible for all of that, it allowed me to understand what the business of the Air Force is, and I hate to bring it to a business, but there is a business aspect to it, right. And then how we can use that business to then help airmen and their families, and then doing that in the middle of COVID opened an entire thing because, for weeks, if you talk about Chad Hardesty, for weeks we were the ones at the commissary stocking milk and stocking bread and stocking meat, because if that was delayed and people couldn't see milk, when people couldn't see milk, I could see the risk and the fear index, if you want to call it that, and I can see this on social media, the fear of the base grow. If we didn't have meat, milk, or bread, the fear grew. If I could get milk in, so now all of a sudden I'm digging into commissary distribution and how does that work? And how do I get more food out? And then how do I make sure that our retiree population is taken care of and our families are taken care of? And so you would see myself and Master Sergeant Hardesty, we were stocking bread. We were the ones stocking milk.
Forward thinking.
Well, there was a problem. The problem was I can't fix COVID. We're still learning at the time. We don't have food. We're really remote, so you can't just go to a Kroger or go to a Tom Thumb or go to a
that makes it even
you
more
don't have, it's
sketchy.
a 45-minute drive to any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And so how do you dig in and help solve that problem? And so some of it is learning. And so sitting down with the manager of the commissary and his whole team, the distribution centers, and figuring out what were the holdups, what could we use, what kind of things could we do to bring more food in. And then once it's there were situations, I don't know if you know this, but most of the companies stock their own food at the commissary. The stockers they're hard to come by. And so there could be food in the back, but it's not up front. And so now every day we go to the back, we go there early, we see what's come in overnight, and we go, okay, we know the populace needs diapers. We know they need milk. And so that's what Chad and I did. Now, as a command chief, it's nice because you have that flexibility to do whatever the base needs. And at the time, what the base needed is they needed food. And they needed bread stocked, and they needed somebody to be there to kind of help that process through. You had other people who set up distilleries to bring out, hand sanitizer and things like that. And so it's taking a problem and saying, I don't know how to solve this, but we're going to dig in until we do, and then just continuing on. And so that was a long-winded way and a lot of different little stories of saying that.
Those are all great examples, though.
The experience of being a command chief and being responsible for 11,000 people and their families in the middle of a pandemic, that was a life-changing experience for me in the way that I look at problems.
100%. I mean, that was like do or die time. I mean, that was all hands on deck. That's when you feel that I could see my bosses scared. When you see your boss scared, there's a problem. You know what I mean? Yep. And that was one of those situations. I was public health. My anxiety was through the roof.
And you guys went from a situation where the Air Force and DHA was saying a year before that, we don't need these guys. Like, let's cut the career field.
Yes.
Let's cut
we
their
were at
training.
an all-time low.
Yeah, we don't need them. I mean, what, pandemics? And then all of a sudden it happens. You guys are rock stars because you're the only ones who can solve this and know what's going on. And now you're in every town hall and every commander's call and every Friday meeting, and public health never had a seat.
People know that we exist now. No,
Correct.
I know. Yes. I got pulled out of honor guard to do public health at Whiteman to run COVID ops because their seniors here just happened at PCS right before that.
Okay.
That was nuts. Coming from honor guard to jumping right back into public health after 2 years. And then I came to Eglin, and then I volunteered to run COVID ops again because I felt like I got it.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's human nature, managing the fear, how to get the information out.
That was a hard one.
That's the hardest part. Flow. That's the hardest part.
Yep.
And for me personally, I give it to the shirts, and then I'm good. That's kind of my go-to maneuver when I want info to get it. I'll just low-key just get them the information on the side. You know what I mean? But was there ever a time where – so we talked a lot about all the amazing things you've done. Excuse me. Was there ever a time – because for me, it took me like 10 years. I'm a late bloomer. It took me like 10 years to find my purpose, my passion, where it clicked, and I was all in. It took me about 10 years. I had a lot of issues and trauma I was working through. I had to do a lot of self-growth to get to where I'm at now. Was there ever a growth period for you, a challenge period for you, or would you say you've always hit the ground running with your way of thinking?
So I think those are two different things. You can hit the ground running and still be in a period of growth or challenge.
That's
and
true.
so the hit the ground running is the way that you address whatever this other thing is, whether it's a growing time or a challenging time. The other problem is it's really hard to identify with that when you're in the moment. You always have to go back. I don't think a lot of people in the middle of COVID were like, wow, that's great, we're growing. They probably say we're challenged, and they'd say we're hitting the ground running, but you have to think about it after the fact and look back and go, that was a time of growth. We grew and we learned as a group, as a society, as an organization, whatever group you belong to. As far as trying to figure out what the purpose is and what I love to do, that takes reflection, and I've only been able to do that in the past couple of years. And what I found was I'm happiest when I'm solving problems. When I'm thrown into a new environment where I have to learn something because I enjoy learning, and then I use that knowledge to help solve a problem and push it forward. And most of the problems that anybody here ends up solving are big, really wicked, hard problems, because if they weren't, somebody else would have already solved them. It was an easy problem. It was solved a long time ago. It would never make it to your level. And it's not a master sergeant level or a chief level. It would never make it past the first level, because the person who sees the problem, this thing went out earlier, you fix the problem.
Right.
The problems that actually go up to a higher level are real issues that are hard to solve, which means you get enamored with hard problems. I enjoy solving them. I enjoy tackling those because the satisfaction of tackling a problem like that is big, and the impact you can make is huge. One of the things, so you talked about you give your information to the shirts and that's how you move forward. Edwards Air Force Base, for instance, has 11,000 people and 7 diamonds.
Oh my goodness.
There's no ratio in any regulation that says you should have 7 diamonds for 11,000 people. The problem is, out of the 11 groups at Edwards, only 4 of them have a large number of active duty troops. The other 7 are civilian. They've got civilian directors, they've got civilian group commanders, they've got civilian squadron commanders. Right. I don't know if you know this, but civilians have issues, just like active duty airmen, just like blue suiters. Civilians have deaths in the family. They have food insecurity. They have suicidal ideation. They have all these problems. And because the civilian system works very much like an HR system for a company, they are not equipped to handle it in the same way that we do with our first sergeants. And so we started moving first sergeants over, and undershirts we'll call them, but I call them shirt. They're not an undershirt. I don't care what you say. They're doing the job full time.
100%.
And so they wear a shirt patch. They don't wear a diamond because I don't control that, but they're going to wear a shirt patch, and they're in the shirt council, and I call them shirt.
Yes.
And then, so we worked really hard. I worked for 3 years to build a civilian first sergeant. And so now at Edwards, you have 2 civilian first sergeants. They're not civilian human resource managers. They're civilians that are on a shirt phone, that are in the shirt council. They're actually, one of them's a prior shirt. He just wanted to be a shirt. He loves being a shirt. And he has the chance to now do that full time again after he retired.
Look at you.
But it's written into their PRD. We had to build the job series correctly, and this is where you have to learn about how civilian hiring goes and how civilian management.
Is very strict.
Yep,
it's got to be laid out. Yep, the foundation.
We put them on a max FlexiWorks schedule, which means who do you call at 2 a.m. when you have an issue? You call the shirt, and I call them shirt. I don't care if they're civilian or not. They are a shirt. They're fulfilling those responsibilities. I can't call them a first sergeant because a first sergeant is actually a rank in the military. Mm-hmm. And you're going to see a group of shirts that are behind me at some point, and they disagree with me on this, and I don't care because that's the problem that we had. And not only did I need that person to be able to help their unit, I needed that person to be a member of the shirt network, because that is a powerful network. And the first time we split them and go, well, these are the real shirts, and these are the kind of civilians pretending to be shirts, then we alienate probably 60% of our population on that base, and we're not taking care of the families correctly. We went through, during that time frame, we went through multiple deaths, just like every unit did. Right. We had suicides during that time, and we had 60% civilians, so some of those were civilians, and you can't, if you don't understand the civilian benefits plan and how that works and how you interact with civilian families, it's a completely different ballgame. And so we needed people who were experts in that. But that is one that I love and I'm very proud of, because it took so much work to push that through the system, through our wing, through Test Center, through AFMC, and then other units can steal it. Yes. And so now I'm talking to NASIC and I'm talking to other civilian-heavy units who are having the same troubles. They can build a job series and build their own civilian shirt. And so I hope that that's something that continues in the Air Force for a long period of time. But it was a hard problem. It took a long time to solve. It actually took more than my time there. Chief D. Ward followed on after me, and she was able to continue on that. And that was the updates she was sending me. Like, hey, everything at Edwards is fine, but I wanted to let you know we just hired our first cert. Or just wanted to let you know the PRV was approved, because she knew it was such an important part of my time there. That has to, like,
put a smile on your face.
Oh, it's awesome. And then the best part is when the ad went out, I pushed the ad out on LinkedIn and Facebook to a few people and say, hey, this is out there. It's pretty cool. And then the guy that actually applied, I didn't know he was going to apply for it, but he hit me up 3 months later as he's moving to Edwards. Wow. And he hit me up to say, thanks for showing that ad. Thanks for building this position. It's amazing. I get to be with my family now, but I also get to be a shirt. Because he was a prior active duty shirt senior master sergeant, and that's all he wants to do. And so now he gets to do that every single day. And so now actually being able to look in the eyes of the guy who's doing that job now, and he's gonna shape it and mold it into this thing that I could have never even imagined. But being able to open that up for him and then allow him to find his passion and continue on with that in a way that wasn't, he wasn't able to before, that's huge. And you just can't beat that.
That is amazing that you pulled that off. I love that. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for being that kind of thinker.
Well, and there were great civilians that helped. There were great teams that helped. The shirt network there, correct. There were a lot of people that jumped into that one, but it took a bird dog approach. You had to, because it'll completely die every week as it just falls below, the surface, and so you have to keep pushing it forward and keep reminding people nicely, but to push that forward. And if you think it's important enough, then you'll do it.
I have one thing I definitely got to ask you.
Okay.
I see short-sightedness all the time. You're a rare breed. You really are. Once you've seen the bigger picture, once you've seen how leaders like you lead, and your eyes are open to the big picture, you can never go back. It's almost a blessing and a curse.
I can see that, yeah.
And so I've been in organizations where I had a lot of freedom of movement. I was heard. My feedback was heard. My ideas were heard. We're thinking ahead. We're planning. We're cohesive. We trust each other. That's a huge part, right? I got your back and you got mine, and we know that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you tell someone that's in a situation that's opposite of that? It's very short-sighted, week to week. There's no retainability. There's a lot of loss of talent going on. There's a lot of burnout. How does a person within that organization start to, turn that ship around?
Dealing with it and turning it around are two totally different things.
Okay.
So you have to be very aware of the surroundings and what you're able to do and what you're not able to do. We have this weird issue in the military, and I say I'm sure it exists in other places because this is where I exist and this is where I've lived the last 22 years. I understand this part. Our metrics of success as an individual often come from other people. They come from a skill upgrade. They come from an expert evaluation or something from StanEval or from an inspection, an exercise, somebody saying, you know what, you are awesome at what you do based on this checklist. They come in rank. One of the biggest ways we tell people that you're doing a great job, because not all of our people say it enough to their people, they don't actually face-to-face go, you're doing awesome.
Right.
It has nothing to do with your rank. It has nothing to do with your promotion potential. It has nothing to do with your paycheck.
It has to do with being human.
Correct. You're awesome. But one of the ways that we tell people they're awesome is by giving them rank. And it's not that they're awesome so we give them rank. It's we use rank as a way to say you are above your peers,
right,
and you are doing great things and we want you to continue.
Absolutely.
The problem with that lever or that recognition system is we're limited by Congress and we're limited by budget and we're limited by funding. So we are limited in our ability to tell our people that they are awesome and doing great things.
Can I pause real quick?
Of course.
That's why I do this.
Yeah. No, I get it. And
no, seriously.
Yep.
I saw that same problem. I said a quarterly award is not enough.
Correct.
One person, one quarter, not enough. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's a way of highlighting you, your thoughts, your missions, having you be seen, and then letting everyone see how awesome you are.
No, and this is why I love, listening to and watching your podcast, is because you get to talk to a person you've never talked to before. You get to learn a story that you've never learned before, and you just get an idea of what else is going on in the world. The problem with those recognition systems is they're limited.
Right.
And we can't limit the amount of people who are awesome.
Right.
So I'm speaking to you as an individual, you cannot let your self-worth or your value or your accomplishments be dictated by the stripe, by the pay, by any of these things. Because you have to be logical enough to go, there's never enough of that. You also can't let your happiness be dictated by your supervisor, by your commander, by your current job and specific situation, because you can't change those things. So they will influence your happiness level, definitely, because you have a crap supervisor, it makes things difficult. But this is why you have to find other things. If I go to any unit, there's a portfolio of problems and solutions and projects I'm working on that come with me. They're ones that I'm passionate about, that are really wicked problems that I've been working on for a long time. I don't care who my supervisor is. This is coming with me. Now, they're Air Force level problems. They're problems that affect other people, but it has nothing to do with my job title. It has nothing to do with my duty description or what's on my EPR or what my rank is. This is what I'm passionate about, and so this problem comes with me. And so, the first sergeant problem, that comes with me. There's nothing in my job title in the SSG that says I help when work civilian shirt issues. Right. I'm passionate about that problem. That comes with me, and that came with me to the position, which means the position only dictates a portion of my happiness, my sense of accomplishment, all of those things. And the sooner, and it took me a long time to get to that point in my mind, I'm going to be happy doing the things that I think are important and like to do. And at a certain point, if my values and my ethics and my self-worth doesn't align to that of the organization, then I need to leave the organization. Now, maybe that organization is a squadron, and I need to leave that squadron. I need to try to get orders to Korea as fast as possible, or deploy, or maybe I need to get into a new section and remove myself from that supervisor. There's little ways to do that. Or at some point, maybe I need to retire from the Air Force. Maybe I need to leave and move to another organization. Now, that's not why I'm leaving the Air Force. I'm leaving the Air Force because I need stability for my family, and I think I still can help airmen and influence national security from a civilian point of view.
Absolutely.
But you can't let these people out here have that much of a hold on your level of happiness, your level of self-worth, because it's a recipe for disaster.
I've lived in that pitfall for. I'm just being honest.
No, everybody has. I think everybody has.
I've had my butt handed to me in that pitfall.
Yep.
It is brutal.
It is.
When someone else is telling you how you should feel about you, and then you're letting that happen. You know what I mean?
Yep. So you have to step out of that, and it's hard when you can go to, okay, I'm a brand new airman. I'm a basic training, and my TI, and we've got great TIs here, but let's say you and your TI, and it's not one of the best. It is not a good situation. That is a temporary situation. They're not there all day. You do get some time on your own. You might be sleeping, but you get a little bit of time, and so take advantage of that time. They're also not in your head. One of the coolest things I liked about basic training is tell you where to go. I don't have to think. I can think about whatever I want in here, because they say go here, then sit here, then get a shot here, then go shoot this, then come home. You don't have to expend any real mental workload to do that type of stuff. Because they're telling you everything to do. And if you do it wrong and you go left instead of right, they're going to correct you pretty quickly. And so,
that's a good point.
Whether you're that airman or trainee, as I was, standing there at Chow for the very first day, getting yelled at for what felt like forever, but was for the entire meal period because I couldn't do a reporting statement correctly. It's stressful, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal. And this way, it allows you to own what's in your head, to own what you do, and own your own happiness, instead of letting these outside factors that you cannot ever control have an outsized influence over it.
Definitely. I got one more question for you.
Sure.
Last question.
Okay.
What's next for you?
Yeah, so I don't know. So I had to, what's next is I got a kid in high school, and I got to make sure that I keep that kid in that high school because he's doing great and he loves it. And this is something I've never been able to provide him. He's awesome, and he's always been, hey, we can move. I get it. We'll go wherever. But after his first year of high school, he said, hey, I get it. If we're going to have to move again, cool. I'm in. But if there's any way we could stick around, so he was a freshman at the time, because if I do this my sophomore year, then my junior year I can do this class. And if I do this, I can get into this program my senior year. And that could set me up for this thing in college. And it was a level of forward thinking and strategic thinking that I hadn't seen from him. And me and my wife, we look at each other and we go, if we can make that happen, we probably need to. And I see, friends of mine in the military, and their kids are resilient kids, but they're at 4 different high schools. And that's just rough. And I'm not saying anybody's wrong for choosing the other way, but it worked better for my wife and for me and for my kids to stick around at that school. And the only way to really stay long-term and give them the stability they need was for me to get out. Now, I then had to look at what are the things that I want to do. And like I said, what are the things I'm most proud of? And it's usually helping airmen or solving a problem. And can I still do that from the outside? And so I started looking into opportunities to influence national security and actually influence how our airmen are developed within the Air Force and outside, and not just airmen, but soldiers, sailors, Marines, Guardians. And I do the same thing with the French and the Brits. But how do I make them better? How do I upskill them? How do I prepare them for the civilian environment and upskill them while they're in the military? And so that's why I do some work that I do with the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum, a nonprofit. I work with a couple different nonprofits to help continue that service. And then that is one of the metrics that I'm using as I start looking forward at specific jobs. But I need to find something where I can serve and where I can help something and do something bigger than myself and provide stability for my family at the same time. So as you can see, I'm still thinking through that. I'm still trying to figure that out.
But I'm in the same boat. So like I told you a little bit before we started, it is hard.
It is.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard for me at my level. I can't even imagine at your level. And it's one of those things that when we joined, we never thought about.
No.
It wasn't a factor.
No, not at all.
You know what I mean? It was like, I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this. There was never a factor of someone you care about and you love will think otherwise.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's a new thing to you at some point in your career. That's a new thing that you've never thought about or had to deal with. And now suddenly you're like, wait a second. I got to look at other options now. I got to really consider these people I love.
Well, the other thing, and I think that the two biggest things that have happened to me in the past 2 years, besides the move to DC, so I was with the Defense Ventures program. So I helped run the Defense Ventures program. And as a command chief, I couldn't go do it. I'm busy. I can't go to commercial industry and go hang out for 2 months and learn there because I've got this wing that's in turmoil and then I've got to help. But once I got into a staff role, I actually had the opportunity to go. And so I'm a random intel airman hanging out at the Pentagon. They send me to Insight Partners, which is a venture capital company in New York that has about $90 billion under management. And so I got to go do investment analysis. So my background is in finance. I got to go in and assess and talk to a bunch of founders, talk to CEOs of really cool companies that are putting awesome tech out there, get into their books, understand their revenue forecasting, their models, what we think that they're going to be worth, and then help write a check. So I invested $200 million with this company as I was there, and I got to learn this venture capital and emerging technology world. Awesome. I had a blast. I learned a lot. I learned a few places I don't want to go, types of roles that I don't want to be in, and some roles that I did. And then I also jumped into this thing called the Presidential Leadership Scholars Program, which is a presidential fellowship. It has nothing to do with active duty personnel. I'm the only active duty in it. And it wasn't I had to ask my commander because it meant that I was TDY for about 3 days a month for a couple months. But it's run by President Bush Sr., President Bush Jr., Clinton Foundation, and LBJ's library. And so every month you go to a different presidential library.
Oh, my goodness.
And so you end up, so we go to Clinton's library, we talk to his chief of staff, we talk to his, Secretary of Transportation, and we talk to, President Clinton himself, and we get to talk to him about whatever we want, whatever,
That's
comes up.
That's pretty unbelievable.
It's amazing.
Oh my God.
But the coolest thing is the rest of the cohort are not military whatsoever. There were a few that were military retirees. There was one that did 6-7 years in and then got out. And the rest, the vast majority of the cohort are completely non-military related in any way. Now, some of them were White House fellows, some of them were White House staffers. So they run major nonprofits. And so what it did is it exposed me to this world of people that are having massive impact. Nothing to do with the military. So you start to see all these other ways that people are serving their community and people around them in the world.
It's like you're opening doors to worlds and places.
Correct.
And concepts and missions that you never knew existed.
Correct. And all of these people actually are awesome. And so I'm 41 years old. And so at the age of 40, showing up into a room of 50 other people, all 35 to 45, we'll say, so tenured individuals in their profession, and all of them being awesome. And actually, most of the people that I talk to now, like texting, hey, what's going on? How are the kids? All that, like new friends. I don't know how quickly you make new friends, but as an adult, you don't make as many new friends. It's just, it gets harder and harder over time. And to walk into a room and to meet that many amazing individuals all at the same time who are your biggest fan, from day one, and you're the same way with them and you're watching them do great things.
That's where the magic happens.
It's amazing, and it's how they curated that group, and so we've done all that. We were with President Bush a couple months ago. We'll be with President Obama here in about a month and a half.
Oh my
and
goodness.
So it's this and it's nonpartisan. That's the best part. And so there are Democrats in there, there are Republicans in there, but no one really talks about politics. It's let's learn, let's build things, let's help the world, and let's use leadership lessons from these presidencies as a backdrop to those things that we're doing.
If you learn about like the history of America and like George Washington and all that, because I'm from that area, like that was his vision, like right there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So pretty amazing that like what that vision was that long ago, you're doing that. You know what I mean?
This amazing, so they've got that. There's one called the Stand 2 Leadership Program, which is one that's done by the Bush Library in Dallas. And that one is veteran. It's veteran focused. Mm. This one is not, but it does kind of the same thing, and it's mixed with multiple presidential libraries. But the biggest thing, it's exposure. It's exposure to people outside the military. Like the nice thing here for this, especially this conference, is you're having airmen who show up who've never seen anything outside of their base and their unit.
They need to see this.
Correct. So now they're getting exposure to the larger Air Force, and they're getting exposure to this AFSA lobbying committee that's doing great things for us. Once you get good at that, we'll say you're pretty well informed on what's going on. You have to expose yourself to other things, and so this is why I love my exposure to the French Air Force and to the British Air Force and to the Germans and to the Japanese, because you get to learn what they're doing and help them shape. And then you start getting the emerging technology side, or the civilian commercial world, and you see amazing people all over, and it allows you to see ways that you can serve, ways that you can help solve problems, and ways you can do whatever it is that you're passionate about doing, not just in the military. And so that those two things, between those two fellowships, it exposed me to these ideas, and it made this really scary, unknown thing, getting out of the military after 22 years, it decreased that level of risk, because I said, okay, I know people. I know some places I don't want to go based on my personality and what I want to do. And I think I know some things I do want to do. And so it's kind of like, we'll call it TAPS. You do 4 days of TAPS, 5 days of TAPS, and you're supposed to be learning industry. That's awesome. But if you can do that over 2 years or 3 years, you get to learn a larger piece of industry, and you get to really explore new ways of service and new ways of helping people. And so that's de-risked that decision much more than had I not had those experiences.
Oh my goodness. You were doing some awesome stuff.
Just right place, right time.
I want to just come hang out with you for a day.
Anytime.
I just want to go with you to one of these things.
Yeah.
Just one of them. One day. I want to shadow you sometime.
So Defense Ventures is still doing applications now. It's with Shift and AFWorks. AFWorks fellows we help stand up. Great opportunity to learn a bunch of things. Morpheus has fellows. So Chad Hardesty, he's a Morpheus fellow right now. And then MIT, we built the Phantom Fellowship program. Because you can only learn so much from a book. At some point, you have to immerse yourself in there, and you have to gain experience doing things well, messing things up. That's the only, for me at least, that's the way that I really learn. Absolutely. And so jump on those opportunities, because those are all very low-level opportunities in the sense that you don't need the chief of staff to say yes. You need a squadron commander to be cool with you going. That's about it. And so it's much easier to get into, and if you don't get into MIT the first time, do it again. Keep applying until they tell you no.
Absolutely.
Because the worst they can do is say no. And that's not a very risky proposition. And so take advantage of those opportunities as they come and try to jump on as many as you can.
Hell yeah. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you for having me here.
No, thank you for being you. Thank you for being so innovative, thinking ahead, inspiring. You've given you and your family, I want to also include them in on this, but you and your family have just given so much to support the Air Force, to support the nation. I can literally sleep better at night knowing that you're on our team.
Well, I appreciate it. That's probably more than I deserve, but I appreciate the sentiment, and thanks for doing this. This is awesome. The fact, again, there's a lot of things going on, but trying to bring people in and trying to help them and give them a platform to share their stories, and then give other people an opportunity to learn from the amazing people that are here in this room and the amazing people you get to talk to. I told you before, I had my own podcast for a while, and it was great because I got to selfishly learn from a lot of people, and then all the cool things we were talking about and I was learning, I got to share it with the world.
Absolutely.
And so that's a really cool place to be. And so thanks for bringing all your stuff and actually taking the time to do this and capturing this moment so that people who they weren't able to make it due to family, due to TDY funds, whatever it was, but I never got to go to this as an airman. It was only as a command chief was the first time I went to an AFSA event or really knew what was going on at these things. And so being able to capture a piece of that and allow the rest of the world kind of democratize that knowledge and that experience, that's a very powerful thing. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, sir. All right, everybody. We had a lot of people tuning in. Whole bunch of people tuning in. What's going on, everybody? Hey, we just got done talking to Chief Master Sergeant Ian Eishen, doing big things, spending time with Team Hero Front. We want to thank everyone who watched, and I will upload this on Hero Front, streaming on all music apps. All right, y'all. Take care.
Have a good one.